Have you ever looked at some people and just thought, how do they do that? You know, they seem to just glide through their mornings. They're super focused all day, and they just make this steady, like undeniable progress on their goals. It almost feels like they've got some secret unfair advantage. Luck, maybe?
Yeah, it can look like luck from the outside for sure.
Yeah.
But if you really peel back the layers, it's architecture, it's design.
Architecture.
What you're seeing there is usually the result of habits. Foundational habits, deeply ingrained, that compound every single day. It's really not about finding more time, it's about being intentional with the time you already have.
Okay, let's unpack that then, because our sources for this deep dive, they've essentially mapped out that blueprint you're talking about. We've pulled out 10 foundational habits that seem to promise pretty significant life transformation.
That's right. It's a powerful set of ideas. And our mission today really is to boil down the core actions for each one and crucially look at the surprising benefits, the psychological ones, the physical ones. The goal is to give you, the listener, the exact steps you could take to feel, well, more focused, healthier, and honestly, happier, starting like right away.
Okay, now I have to mention, the source material lists these habits in a slightly non-intuitive order. We see habit 6, then 1, then 5. It's a bit jumbled numerically.
Yeah.
So we're not going to just list them 1 to 10. We're going to group them logically. It makes more sense, right?
Definitely.
We're starting with the absolute foundation. Intentionality and preparation. This is about like winning the day before it even really starts, before your feet hit the floor.
Exactly. And the very first step in the preparation phase, is habit 6. Plan your day the night before.
Okay, this one sounds simple. Almost too simple. The blueprint says just spend, 5 dedicated minutes writing down your top 3 priorities for the next day. That's it?
That's basically it, 5 minutes. But the timing doing it the night before, that's key.
Why? Why is nighttime planning so much better than, say, figuring it out over your morning coffee?
Well, there's this concept called decision fatigue. It's pretty fascinating. Throughout the day, every little choice, what to wear, what to eat first, which email to answer, it all takes a tiny bit of mental energy, a small cognitive tax, you could say.
Okay.
By nailing down your top priorities the night before, you basically minimize the number of decisions you have to make first thing in the morning when your willpower might still be, booting up.
So instead of waking up and immediately facing this wall of choices and potential anxiety, your brain already knows the main targets. You've kind of pre-allocated your focus. You can just jump into execution mode.
Precisely. You've banked that mental energy. And if planning helps reduce that morning anxiety, the sources then ask, well, where should you direct that energy? Which brings us right to habit 1. Start your morning intentionally.
Oh yeah, the phone grab. We all know it, right? That reflexive reach for the phone, scrolling social media or emails literally seconds after waking up.
And doing that basically hands control of your day's tone over to whatever pops up on that screen, external forces.
Right, you're reacting instantly.
The sources are really clear on this. Instead of the phone, take just 5 minutes. 5 minutes, maybe deep breathing, some light stretching, or even just sitting quietly and thinking about your intention for the day.
Okay.
This taps into something called self-determination theory. You're consciously establishing internal control right at the outset. It's a small shift, but it sets this internal direction for the whole day. Makes a huge difference to focus later on. You end up, reacting less and creating more.
Okay, those 2 habits together, planning the night before, starting intentionally to demand, they create this kind of protective bubble around the start of your day.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
But none of that works nearly as well if the foundation underneath is cracked, right? Which leads us to, well, arguably the cornerstone of long-term health and focus. Habit 5, prioritize sleep.
Absolutely fundamental.
And I think most people know sleep is important, notionally. But they massively underestimate the real cost of consistently getting, say, 6 hours instead of 7 or 8.
The cost is enormous. And the sources really dig into the science here. It's way more than just feeling tired. Sleep is when your brain does its essential maintenance work. There's this thing called the glymphatic system.
Okay.
It basically acts like a plumbing system, flushing out metabolic waste products that build up while you're awake. Things like beta amyloid proteins, which are linked to bigger problems down the line.
So skimping on sleep means you're literally letting junk accumulate in your brain, like cognitive clutter.
Exactly that. And there's more. REM sleep, the dream stage, is absolutely critical for processing emotions.
Right.
If you cut sleep short, You impair your ability to regulate stressful emotions the next day. You become less resilient, more reactive, more easily overwhelmed.
Wow. So the action here is pretty non-negotiable then.
It really is. It's a consistent bedtime routine. Dim the lights, definitely no screens for at least an hour before bed, and stick to a regular schedule as much as possible, even on weekends. The benefit, it's not just feeling rested, it's profound mental clarity and much, much better emotional management.
That's a really powerful start. Okay, so we've built this mental foundation with planning, intentional mornings, and solid sleep. Now let's move into active engagement, movement, learning, and mindful consumption. How do we fuel this focused structure we're building? Let's kick off with habit 2. Move your body daily.
Yeah, and the great thing about this habit, as presented in the sources, is that it really lowers the barrier to entry. It tackles that pressure we often feel about exercise needing to be this huge, intense thing.
Right. It doesn't have to be an hour at the gym or, running 5 miles.
Exactly. The source material makes it clear. A brisk 15-minute walk counts. Doing a few sets of push-ups during a work break counts. Even just, like you said, dancing around your kitchen while the coffee brews. That counts.
It's the consistency, not necessarily the intensity, that matters most here.
Precisely. And the benefits kick in almost immediately. Chemically speaking, regular movement boosts something called BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor.
BDNF. Okay, what's that?
Think of it like fertilizer for your brain cells. Seriously. It helps grow new neurons and strengthens existing ones. So movement isn't just about stress relief, it physically enhances your brain's capacity for learning and memory. Plus, it gives you an immediate energy boost, not an energy drain like people sometimes expect.
That makes sense. And it flows really nicely into the next one, habit 4. Read or learn something new every day. Now, for our audience, this might seem kind of obvious, right? People listening are probably already learners. But what turns this from just, passive consumption into a truly transformative habit?
It's the intentionality again. It's consciously setting aside even just 10 minutes. 10 minutes to read something specific, maybe listen to a podcast like this one, but with the goal of learning something new or challenging an existing assumption. It's about actively preventing intellectual stagnation. Curiosity, if you feed it daily, becomes this incredibly sustainable engine for growth, both professionally and personally. It keeps your perspective wide and adaptable.
Yeah, I find that when I skip that little window of intentional learning, my world just shrinks down to my immediate tasks and worries.
It really does. It's easy for that to happen. And, okay, before we move on from this section about fueling the day, let's touch on habit 8. Eat mindfully. We eat several times a day usually, so this offers a huge recurring opportunity for conscious practice.
But it's often the opposite, isn't it? We're eating, standing up, scrolling on our phone, rushing between things.
Absolutely. So the action the sources recommend is actually very straightforward. Slow down.
Simple advice. Hard to follow sometimes.
It can be, but try to actually notice the flavors, the textures. Pay attention. Ask yourself, how does this food really make my body feel? Not just immediately, but like 20 minutes later. Am I energized or am I feeling that slump?
The practical benefits are clear, right? Better digestion, probably better portion control because you notice when you're full, prevents that awful feeling of being stuffed.
Definitely. But the deeper benefit, again, it comes back to appreciation and awareness. You're taking a basic, necessary biological function and elevating it into a moment of, well, presence. Maybe even pleasure. You switch off the autopilot and actually reconnect with what your body needs and is telling you.
Okay, that brings us to our final group of habits. And these feel like they're maybe more about the long game, the resilience builders. We're calling it cultivating mindset and environment. Let's start with one that gets talked about a lot, but maybe isn't always deeply understood. Habit 3, practice gratitude.
Yeah, this one is critical, according to the sources. And again, the action seems almost deceptively simple. Take a moment each day, maybe morning, maybe night, and ideally write down 3 specific things you're genuinely grateful for.
3 specific things, not just my family, but like the way my partner made me laugh this morning.
Exactly. Specificity matters. And it's not about forcing some kind of fake positivity. It's more like cognitive redirection, training your focus.
We read in the source material that it actively rewires your brain. How does that actually work? Is that just a metaphor?
Well, it's based on the concept of neuroplasticity. By repeatedly, consciously focusing your attention on positive things, on things that are working, you literally strengthen the neural pathways associated with those positive states. Contentment, appreciation, acceptance. So over time, it builds actual neurological resilience. When something challenging inevitably happens because life throws curveballs, right? Your brain's default reaction is less likely to be just pure panic or negativity. It becomes more inclined to scan for what's still okay, or what lessons can be learned, or what resources you have. It's a powerful resilience builder.
That makes sense. Focusing on the positive needs to be balanced, though, with honest self-assessment. Which brings us neatly to habit 10, reflect and journal.
Yes. And we're back to that magic 5-minute rule again. Just 5 minutes, perhaps at the end of the day, maybe before you do your planning for tomorrow, to just quickly reflect. What went well today? What felt like a struggle? Was there one small thing I did or didn't do that I could genuinely try to improve tomorrow?
So why is jotting this down better than just kind of vaguely thinking about it, hoping you'll remember? What's the real benefit here?
It cultivates something called metacognition, which is basically thinking about your own thinking and your own actions.
Right.
You simply cannot grow effectively if you don't consciously process your experiences and understand the impact of your choices. Reflection turns that raw, sometimes messy daily experience into structured learning, into wisdom eventually. It dramatically speeds up your learning curve about yourself and how you operate.
Okay, so that internal growth, that self-awareness, it needs support from the outside too.
Right.
Which is why we then move to habit 9, surround yourself with positive people.
Yes, this is such a core insight. The idea that your environment, especially the people in it, is often stronger than your individual willpower.
Say more about that.
The people you consistently spend the most time with, they fundamentally shape your outlook, your mindset, your expectations, even your standards for what you believe is possible for yourself. Their energy, their attitudes, their conversations, it all rubs off, you know.
Okay, but practically speaking, how do you do this? It sounds great, spend more time with uplifting people, but life's complicated.
Yeah.
How do you manage relationships with, say, old friends or even family members who might be more negative or draining without causing huge rifts?
That's a really important question. The source material suggests it's less about dramatically cutting people off necessarily, and more about a conscious audit of where your social energy goes.
An audit, okay.
Yeah. Intentionally minimize time spent in interactions that consistently leave you feeling drained or negative, and proactively invest time and energy in relationships with people who genuinely inspire you, who uplift you, who maybe even challenge you constructively to grow. It's about being deliberate with your social bandwidth, treating it like the precious resource it is.
Got it. Deliberate allocation. And finally, we have a habit that feels like it protects all the others. Habit 7, limit screen time and social media. This is kind of the defensive play.
It really is. It's the habit that guards your most valuable asset in today's world, your attention span. The core action here is setting clear, firm boundaries. For example, a hard stop on scrolling an hour or even 90 minutes before you plan to sleep.
Which obviously protects your sleep, linking back to habit 5. What else does limiting screen time shield us from?
Well, it protects your dopamine pathways, for one. The constant drip feed of easy, low-effort, high-reward stimuli from social media and endless scrolling actually trains your brain to crave that instant gratification.
Right. Makes real work feel harder.
Exactly. It makes the sustained, sometimes difficult effort required for deep work, creative thinking, or even just being present in a quiet moment feel almost intolerable. Limiting screen time gives your brain a chance to reset, to recalibrate its reward system. It helps you appreciate the slower, deeper satisfaction that comes from real-life interactions, from creating something, from focus. It essentially helps you stay present in your actual life rather than just constantly consuming the curated highlights of others.
Wow. Okay. So we've run through these 10 habits: planning, intentional mornings, sleep, movement, learning, mindful eating, gratitude, reflection, positive connections, and limiting screens. Individually, yeah, they seem like pretty small, manageable adjustments. But when you stack them all up, look at them together, it really does look like a completely new operating system for life.
Yeah, that really is the synthesis here. That's the core message from the sources. These 10 habits might seem minor in isolation, 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there, but when you implement them consistently, they genuinely redefine the quality of your daily existence. They don't just change what you do, they start to change who you are, arguably even at a neurological level.
So the big question for the listener then is, where do you start? Should they wake up tomorrow and try to tackle all 10 at once? That sounds overwhelming.
Yeah, definitely not. That's usually a recipe for burnout. The sources strongly emphasize starting small. Really small. Pick just one, or maybe two, max. Whichever ones resonate the most right now or feel like the lowest hanging fruit.
Okay.
Maybe it's habit 6, planning your top 3 the night before. Or maybe habit 3, jotting down 3 things you're grateful for each day. Commit to just those 1 or 2 for, say, 3 weeks. Just focus there.
And the idea is that you'll start to feel a difference.
The sources suggest you'll be genuinely amazed at the tangible difference it makes. Maybe less daily stress, maybe a bit more focus, maybe just a slightly better mood. And then you build from that success. Add another habit when you feel ready, 1 brick at a time.
Okay, here's what I find really striking, looking back at the list. And maybe this is the final takeaway. Think about how many of these potentially life-changing habits hinge on just 5 minutes of intentional time.
Yeah, it's remarkable, isn't it?
5 minutes for breathing or stretching in the morning. 5 minutes for planning at night. 5 minutes for reflection. 5 minutes for gratitude.
That's absolutely the final thought we want to leave you with. The real transformation isn't about magically finding an extra 3 hours in your day. That's usually unrealistic. It's about the quality and the intentionality packed into those very few minutes you consciously decide to invest in yourself. Those 5 minutes in the morning, maybe 5 at night, that 10-minute total, that might be the highest leverage investment you can make. It's the tiny hinge that swings the big door. It's the compound interest that fuels clarity and effectiveness in everything else you do.